We are a podcast for product marketers and B2B SaaS who feel misunderstood of what they do.
From someone who truly gets what you do and
basically help you feel less like a misfit, being unignorable in your life.
Hey. Welcome to another episode of We're Not Marketers. This is Zach, the sales water boy.
Yo, Eric Holland, resident Franken marketer. Before I pass it to Gab, I just want to say I love it when Zach does the Fat Albert hey intro. I know it's gonna be a fire episode when we start like that. So let me toss it to our last misfit, Gab.
The bar is high, man. Like I don't have that signature laugh or something. Gab Bugeaud, sales deck intern, still again doing sales deck.
But my man, you got the signature stash. And I've been growing this one out for, gosh, how long? 3 weeks? And it still looks like I'm on the JV basketball team over here compared to this stud over here.
There's always someone with a better stash. My grandfather, basically, he had his stash for 76 years. He grew it at 90 years old to look older, and then he just never shaved it.
You said 9 years old?
19.
Oh, 19.
9 is pretty young. Right?
9 years old.
Yeah, the stash gene are strong, right?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I can't figure my stash. It's in pretty full, but it just always wants to curl over my lip. Even when I cut it, 2 days later, it wants to just hang out over my lip. So I just can't. I can't figure it out. So listeners out there, if you want to drop me a note and got any stash tips, I'll take them. Sounds like Zach will take them too.
Oh yeah, I will embrace them with open arms. But you guys, I know y'all are not here to hear about grooming etiquette.
What?
We're
not having a grooming episode? All right. Fine.
Hashtag we're not barbers. really quick though, but we wanted to drop this topic on you all, and something that's been sitting on our chest for a bit is that what it seems like PMM jobs in our industry are on the rise. We're noticing a unique trend of where helping might hurt on LinkedIn. Of you see an opportunity posted by either the hiring manager or your potential future colleague on LinkedIn. Everybody's so excited about it. They react to the opportunity. They're sharing it across their extended network, and it's getting a lot of awareness and a lot of interest, a lot of engagement. But then you might see that one comment of, hey, I applied to this role and I didn't hear anything back. Or, hey, like, I applied to this and I got an immediate rejection. So we wanted to open up this conversation today to explore what should proper interview and recruiting etiquette look like within our community, knowing what's been happening the past 18 months. We've spoken about this a few times before with layoffs, with job transitions. How should we be treated, and what should companies consider in their own candidate experience to make it so that you still feel like you have your dignity when you're looking for a job, especially when you were kicked to the curb 2 months ago. Oh, I'm speaking about myself, but this is not about us, y'all. But really want to open up to you guys too as well and get your initial thoughts of what's been shared here so far.
Yeah, I'll start off with a little bit of a story, right? I think if you take it back into a sales journey idea, first step is let's qualify this person. Let's see if it's a good fit. If you're thinking about referrals and thinking about resharing someone's open for work post or sending in an application for a job offer, let's do that qualification process ahead of time. And when I was working at a company, essentially was done there and looking for my next opportunity, and was getting like an influx of, hey, how can I help? And let me pass you over to this person. Can I recommend you to this person? And ended up landing in the lap of the direct competitor, like number one or number two competitor for the previous company I worked for. So like face value, he's expert in the industry, which there isn't a lot of people there. We've seen his body of works, which has done, very well. And he's coming off like fresh and rearing to go. Doesn't need this big layover period where we can't start using his skill set. So like at face value, it seems no brainer. And of course, got the interview. Things went really well with the hiring manager. But boom, then I find out, oh, hey, people are a little squeamish about bringing on someone so close to the competitor, right? And so I think early on, I shouldn't have ever even went through that process. I think I had 3 rounds of interviews or something like that, or at least I met 3 people, 4 people actually. And we never had to waste that time. We never had to even get to know each other. The hiring manager didn't need to get any egg on her face for bringing that situation up to the CEO. If they just like qualified early and figured out exactly who we can have and who we can't have. And of course, I want to throw the caveat out there that maybe when you're hiring, you're not planning for your direct competitor to come into your hiring pool. But I do think there's just like some general awareness in that story, I think shines to me as something that happened of just people not doing the due diligence and just taking in any applicant that passes through.
That's an interesting point around like the competitor, because I've heard the opposite end of the story where a competitor is eager to pick up a candidate because they worked at their top competitor's company. But it goes back to what you're saying here, Eric, is that what is the criteria of your candidate that you're looking for versus copying the competition. But Gab, I think you mentioned something before where you had a similar experience where the difference being that you actually presented the case interview
Case interview?
or like the home, what was it? How do you describe it? Like the take home assignment,
Oh yeah, the assignment. The yeah,
Homework.
good point. Yeah, the
homework.
homework. I think homework is a light term compared to what I had to do. Like I like assignment, right? And I gave some to some people. I filled some of them, and I think there's definitely a change where a lot of people think that if you do assignment, you should be compensated for your time, and I believe in that. I just think that in some cases, if this can be the difference between me and another candidate going to the next round, I'd rather do it, even that I'm compensated or not. But it's never ideal. But this assignment, I think I spent at least 10 hours on. And I asked at the beginning because I had to do another assignment like a few weeks prior or a few months prior. And that one, they said you should not take more than a few hours working on that. And I think I spent 2 hours and a half on that. But this new one was really about, oh, as much time as you think would be beneficial. And then he said it really depends on the level of experience of the candidate. I'm like, okay, but this fluff at best. You're not giving me any guardrails on what the end result should be. If I spend 35 hours on an assignment compared to someone that spent 5 or 7, ultimately my end results will be a lot better. So basically, long story short, what I did is I worked on that assignment, which was colossal. I think it was a go-to-market plan. It has like a launch cadence. It had a lot of information, like a deck of 30 slides, and I needed to present another deck. So I work on that. I'm hyper stressed. They give me a very tight deadline. So I work on the weekend. I make sure I do everything. I send it. And then it's okay, cool. You're going to be able to present it to us next Thursday. So I'm like, okay, cool, fine. I practice, I take a look at stuff, I make sure I know everything comes where it's the time to have the call. And then, like, basically, Wednesday morning, the day prior to me pitching it, the hiring manager calls me and say, hey, you're not on the call right now. I'm like, what do you mean? The call is on Thursday. You said it would be on Wednesday. I'm like, no, we chatted back and I said it would be on Thursday. And then he's like, okay, cool. Let me figure out if we can have a time with the other PMM and the director of marketing. So I'm like, okay, cool, fine. I get a call at like 8 p.m. on Thursday. So I never got the call back. And then at 8 p.m. on Thursday, I received a message, a voice memo of the hiring manager telling me that I need to call him back. So I call him, and then he's telling me, yeah, we finally decided to go with another candidate. The only reason why I wanted to meet you was for just providing you feedback on what you shared and just for basically being polite. So I spent more than 10 hours was very excited to present what I worked on, and then just got completely cut the herb under my feet.
Yeah,
That's shitty.
and he got Zach and I involved. We also spent time reviewing this work. It was a village who got
Yeah,
let down that day.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I remember getting that message and just being so infuriated of like, how do you do this? And you know what, Gab? I also remember them wanting to put you in like the product launch. They
Team.
wanted, yeah, they wanted your core competency to be about product launches. And was there like a positioning and messaging go to market one
There
something?
there was one position on sales enablement, and I think there was another one on positioning. I think it was positioning and maybe messaging or something else. I'm not exactly sure,
I think
but
it's
I know that
strategy.
on the
I think it was strategy
yeah,
related
right, yeah,
and
you're right.
positioning.
It was a strategy role,
Yeah.
and I was like, cool. Like my background right now was I was working with BDRs and SDRs, so sales enablement was a part of my job because I was going in depth, and then I was just providing those insights for them to build out on messages and stuff like that. And then I saw strategy, I was like, cool, this is perfect, this is great. And then she talked to me and she's like, I think you would fit better in the launch department. I'm like, bro, I never my launch experience is very little. Why are you putting like my weak angle compared to something I could bring in terms of
yeah.
value to your organization? So yeah,
Yeah, and I think
Gosh,
that was
that's
just a complete miss. Like they didn't even, no offense to the company, but my estimation from the little I knew was that they didn't know what the hell they wanted.
exactly.
It made you work what, a quarter of a work week,
Yep.
you
yes,
know, and
uncompensated.
Yep.
uncompensated. And
Not even a gift card, nothing. Like
But we
yeah,
wanted to give you feedback because you were just so polite with the fuck your feedback. I'm sorry to be like so direct on that, but you put that much effort. You're like, at this point, you should have a clear idea of what you want to do. You should set upfront expectations of what that process like. Like the idea that they didn't even set up the right date for you, that's on them, and that's a reflection of a poor candidate experience. And I'm sorry that you even had to go through that because I'm hot hearing about it
yeah,
all
and
over again.
exactly. And I don't know. It wasn't good for my confidence and stuff. Like I was just like, okay, so is the reason why they didn't want to meet with me was because the work I sent prior was not considered good, and then they just said, oh, we're just going to give him a pat in the back and tell him work on that again, buddy. So I was like, even then, I think the assignment was not in the right direction. The guardrails were not provided, and just the human decency of telling me, hey, this is how it happened with the scheduling. I think it was just like a big mess altogether. No hate about the company. I think it's just a good way for me it was just a push of let's stop right now trying to search for a job or always getting up to that last point where it's a technical test or an assignment and then a final offer. So I think it was just a way for me to be like, hey, screw that, I'm going to start my own thing or whatever. But yeah, not a pleasant experience.
still fires me up.
Gosh,
Zach, do you have any?
I
Do
know.
you have any experiences like this?
Oh gosh, like I think you two know this, but anyone listening doesn't know this. Is that in the first few months when I went solo, you see it, and this is an example of reality versus LinkedIn, where you see it like, hey, this person's thriving, like you were bussing along, but there was a lot of imposter syndrome that I was feeling in the first like few months, and I was still had this client I'm working with. There was always this kind of lingering, partially fear and aspiration. I didn't know what to call it at the time, but I would look out for roles that I was really interested in. I was like, oh, I can definitely see myself in it. And it was this company that I was following for several years. They were focused on professional coaching. They're based out of the UK and San Francisco. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I saw they had a senior PMM role. It was like, that's the space I want to be. It was in training. I really love this company, what they were doing. And fortunate enough, I had a mutual connection. I knew someone that was working as a PMM. So we got connected. We're talking back and forth. She did caveat. It was like, hey, like I want you to be aware things have been a bit chaotic here. But like I still want you to get a chance to learn more about it and for you to make that decision for yourself. Fortunate for her, she got me a referral. I had the recruiter screen. if I knew this in advance, this is where everything went downhill, y'all. I'm sitting there talking with this person, and they're like, first question, they were like, "Oh, what is break into PMM?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a consulting PMM consulting gig I opened." Oh, consulting, okay. So I was like, "Oh, like this is a recruiter I'm talking to. Where their job is to like help understand like what you're looking to do and be the face of the company." And then they looked and said, "Oh, I see you were laid off at Clarity." I was like, "Yeah, it happened." He's, "Oh, you should have stayed at Dropbox." And I was like,
Wow.
"What? Who? What?" I was at a loss for words. Like there's no tact.
Yeah, no
There was
decorum.
no decorum, no compassion. And this is a professional coaching company. They I was like, "You guys, you're not even living to your guys' ethos in this moment." We go through the interview experience. I drop the phone and I'm like, "Gosh, I was feeling like crap." Like when you mentioned that experience, what you're talking about there, I was like, "Damn." And I took a hard look at myself, and I was just like, am I doing this because I'm really excited about the role? Or is it that I'm afraid that I can't do what I'm doing right now?" And
Right.
then the next day, I get an email back, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we want to move you forward." And then I reply back, I'll say, "Hey guys, I really appreciate the time, but I'm deciding to take myself out of the process." And it was mainly because of that first experience, because I was like, yes, I am looking for a new opportunity, but I'm not begging for an opportunity. I know I'm qualified. I know I bring the experience to the table. And if you are going to treat me like that in the first recruiting experience, heaven forbid, I don't want to imagine what the rest of the process or what that role or the company would be like. So then I just backed out, sent them an email, didn't get a reply back. Never heard from them again. And I was like, you know what? The feeling is mutual. But
I think you dodge a bullet right there. 100%.
I dodged a bullet train.
That's whack.
I strongly relate to what you said about being in the first few months and doubting yourself, and I feel like that imposter syndrome never really leave. But it's all I find myself sometimes being on. I'm seeing a company post a PMM position, and then I check it out and I read the stuff, but it's always like it's enticing a bit to apply because in that case it's sometimes it's a bit more safe. You're like, what if? But I think just circling back and being, I don't think this is the right move right now, I should bet on myself a little bit more, is something that I think a lot of us that kind of go through the consulting route might go through. And if like it's a roller coaster, so if we can have more ups than down and dodging those kind of bad practice that make you feel like shit, it will just be a better experience altogether for both parties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you fucking won't end up like me, who tries to do product marketing and ends up being the only marketer at his organization doing all the marketing and very little product marketing.
This is a great story. I would like you to tell our audience a little bit
Oh
more about
yeah,
that.
this is actually even better because the story itself, when I look at it start to finish, is just I did not read the room, did not read the red flags.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Gab.
it's the the comparison I have is those ski races, and there was like a bunch of flags, and you have to go through all of the flags. I feel like your experience at that company was like that, right?
Yeah, and I was just like crashing into
And
all
you're
of them.
hitting all of them.
Yeah, I wasn't even like
Exactly.
swallowing in between them. It was just like crushing them.
This dude will bomb in them flags. Bop, bop,
Yeah,
bop.
but this is a wild story. And I think if you're listening to this, my hope is that you take a shred of it and say, don't be like Eric. I was looking
No,
for
no pun
my,
intended. Shredded down it.
yeah. So I was looking for my next opportunity and I had a few kind of options I was going through. And two were like, seemed pretty stable, relatively like strong leadership from what I was getting through the interview process. Then there was a third one that was just like super shaky, definitely not established, didn't give great answers to my questions. Basically, fast forward, what happened was they elected to go with someone else. And then came back to me. I forget how long, a month or two, somewhere in between there, and was like, "We actually to talk to you and offer you this job." And general excitement took over instead of the question, "Wait, why was I passed over originally, and why are you going with me now?" And I asked the latter, right? I just like, "What made you change your mind?" type deal, but didn't ask like, "Why did you pick this other person?" And then I think probably just being, again, glass half full type of guy, the answer felt good enough and was like, yeah, you're going to be working with her actually. So even though we offered her the job, we want you guys to be like a tag team. You handle product marketing and she'll be the growth. And again, excitement took over. Didn't even think to ask the right questions. How have you established the working relationship? What are my expectations supposed to be versus hers? None of that was established. And again, I'm probably getting a little long winded here, but fast forward into the actual first week of the job or second week of the job, she's fired. She was actually at a trip for the company in Vegas and was told she was let go that during a moment when her flight got delayed and couldn't get home. So terrible moment.
2 weeks. Sorry, 2 weeks after
I
you
started.
started the job, she was
Not
fired.
even so. Like I started on a Monday, she was fired that following Monday. So I worked
What?
together for a week, and then she was let go while she was at an event, and her flight was delayed, so she was just chilling in a random airport.
And you're just sitting there knowing that you're going back home without a job,
Yep.
despite being on a work trip now, a former work trip. Wow.
And put this in perspective. She was there like 2 months, maybe 3 months. I don't even think I had the full 90 days under the belt. And you know, which is fine. Like when it's hey, this person isn't for me. They're not working out. But when I only was able to make it 9 months and then there's no one in place, it makes you question that whole thing. So yeah, like red flag going into the interviews, red flag coming out of the interviews, red flag going into the work. And ultimately, it wasn't a good experience for me. It wasn't good for my mental health. It wasn't good for my partner's mental health. And I think there's always the silver lining, and I'll never take that experience back in terms of what I was able to learn and the challenges I was able to overcome. But if you were to dial it back and make the right decision, I think I would have never elected to work there. Probably would have never elected to make it through the third interview. And I just think it's a valuable lesson to everyone. What happens if you do get too eager to fill that job opening that you need to fill? And if you're not holding these other employers and their HR team accountable during the process, you'll end up in a situation very similar to what I just described. And you'll be looking for your next opportunity probably shortly thereafter.
This is bringing me back, man. This is bringing me back to some discussion we had, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is how they want to play it out. I think it's a good question to be like at first, oh, cool. So PMM is going to be collaborating with growth or with a growth role or growth marketing or whatever. But then you have to understand, expecting you to make everything work together and just focusing on like leads and like revenue and results. And if this is their standpoint on the role, are they expecting you to just focus on leads instead of working on like messaging, positioning, larger strategic initiatives that you can necessarily always be like doing, just supporting and always being like not the police, but just someone that will help handle the growth as well. So I think it's always that question of, we're just talking back to how much does that organization understand product marketing, and what KPI of success are they expecting from me as well?
Yeah, dude.
I think
It's our sorry, Zach. Just want to say this last point. It's like
oh, no,
the
go ahead.
root of our conversation, the root of our podcast. Like they clearly did not get product marketing. And from day one, when they were hiring for product marketing, they didn't know. When they got their first person in, they still didn't know. When they got their second person in, they didn't know. And it's probably safe to say they still don't know. And
Yeah.
I think that's just wanted to point that out. The root of not just this conversation, but all of our conversations, is you can't just go hiring product marketing and not actually do the due diligence and figuring out what you're hiring for and why you're hiring it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's two themes that stick out from what we're sharing here so far. Is like one, like there appears to be a low level of trust from employers when they're hiring product marketers. I'm not saying all employers, but from like the experiences we're sharing now, is that low level of trust, meaning, can this person do the job? I don't know, so I'm gonna put them through 7 interviews.
Minimum.
Can Minimum. You're gonna do a take home assignment, and I'm gonna grill you on every aspect of it, knowing full well that you don't work at that company, so you don't have the same level and access of information about our company that we do. So that's one thing that comes in. That's really frustrating in this environment of looking for an opportunity. And I know I have the experience. I'm a smart, capable person, and I can pick this up, and I know how to do this job. And it goes to the second point of just I feel like there's this fallacy in the market today where you have to have the perfect candidate. And if it's not about, okay, let me hire the person that I know is qualified and can grow into this role. This person has to have 8 years of product marketing experience. They have to have led a team for 4 years. They've got to have 12 years of industry experience in manufactured goods. And it's not to say that person doesn't exist, but I feel like there's just such an emphasis on quote unquote the perfect candidate, mainly coming from a place of, I don't really know what we're looking for, that it just creates a really poor candidate experience. Imagine for us three who have never really done a podcast before, imagine if we each interviewed each other for a hosting position for this podcast.
Oh man, I don't even know what I'd be asking.
That's a fun
What
activity,
questions
though.
do we have?
Oh, I know
Yeah.
one question. One question. Can you use Descript?
Barely.
Do you know how to?
Our
You know
interview.
how to do transcripts and Descript? Because I don't. So you're already ahead of me when you're hired.
Our, here's another one for you. Our product marketers.
That's the key one. Here's another one. Where are you seeing your podcast in 5 years?
And what, Zach, what's interesting when you say that is like finding out what you want. I think there's also a natural tendency to be like, this is my perfect candidate, right? This is what I want them to be. But like, where is your like least or like lowest qualified candidate? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where is, hey, if you give me this, that means I can shape them to this, then get them to this, and then after that, they're my perfect candidate.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that work ever does get done. I think it's probably a good question to ask someone in that position because I just don't know. But I feel when you write up that job description, it's here's the person I want, and then they have their like one-on-one meetings with the HR person, and they're like, this is the type of person you need to bring me. And then they'll have their like a few weeks or a few months later when they're not getting the right candidate, they'll be like, this is the type of person you need to give me. But I don't think they're ever like, here's what I need them to be, but here's where they can start at. Let's go find them. I just don't know if that's happening.
I don't think so. And I know from a past life, I worked closely with the recruiting team, and really good recruiters know how to set expectations of, okay, this is what the market looks like, this is what you might be seeing, and this is what you should expect at this out. I don't think those conversations are happening because if I remember from our last conversation with Harvey, 5% of PMMs have less than 5 years. Some of these roles might be asking for more. Like, how is that number of years experience relevant to what you're looking for that person to do? I do understand to some degree having some years of experience might decrease the ramp time of getting onboarded. But another reality is that a lot of companies today are not providing L&D programs. They're not providing training. In the Harvey said it too, is like in the last 4 years, L&D budgets have been cut. If you go into some of these private communities today, like I haven't been to PMM camp, but my proxy has been to exit 5, a lot of us are doing our own L&D. We're asking questions, we're getting answers to us while we're discussing back and forth, and we're paying for that. And maybe the company might be expensing that, but there's many examples where a lot of like candidates out there are taking on their own learning to become more proficient, and then to have a company and say, Gab, to your point, why'd you choose this headline versus fuck, I don't know. Like, because it seemed like the most appropriate headline. This is why you hired me to do this job. If you don't trust me in doing it, I can show it to you. But if you're gonna question what, maybe that's just the history of being a product marketer. But it's just, I don't know. I'm just frustrated about it.
Oh yeah,
No, and it's a fair point, but they don't
Yeah.
understand the different facets of the role. If you are at 4 years of experience, what are you expecting to get when you are at 8 years of experience? And then why are
Yes.
you asking, for example, for 8 years of experience for a PMM role, but you're asking for 4 years of experience for a senior PMM? Like there's a lot
Yes.
of dissonance in those different roles. And I just think that like when you start digging, when you start asking those questions, really similar to the work we're doing with messaging and positioning. When you try to ask, but why, and you just dig a little deeper, you understand that it's crumbly at best. They
Yeah.
don't know why they put that number. And this is making me think about two stories. Do we still
Mhm.
have time?
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Okay. Two stories very quick. The first one, I did an assignment. This is the one I talked about of 2.5 hour. This one basically, person, I think it was a PM, asked me like, "Hey, so how are you planning to do market research?" And then I'm bringing like my initial ideas in terms of tactics is how I would do it. But then he's starting to ask me like, "Okay, but how exactly would you do it?" And then I stayed not surface level, but I asked stuff like, "Okay, but depend on the data. Do you have your own data? Do you have like party data that you're looking for, and you're able to bring surveys or interviews?" And then he said, "Yeah, but let's say you want to tackle this new market in the US." So I felt like it was they didn't understand what they were trying to target, and they were expecting me to give them the answer. As a PMM, yes, you need to understand the context, but you still need to have that kind of direction provided a bit. So that was what I was like, I cannot give you the end results, right? I'm external. I don't know your industry as much. And even if I did, there's a lot of different factors that I don't have under my control. So that's the first thing. The second thing is earlier we talked about like people are hiring PMMs because sometimes it's trendy. And I don't know if you guys remember, but once I sent you a message and I was like, "Hey guys, I think I have an amazing opportunity for us to do consulting." And it was someone that posted a job for a product marketing role. And I jumped on the call. I started asking about the role. And then what you need is a
I remember.
what you need is a
Yeah, he
you
said,
don't need a PMM.
yeah, you needed an intern and a like administrative assistant.
Exactly. Like he told me, "Okay, but I understand the strategy part, but can you execute campaign? Can you bring me leads?" I'm like, "Bro, what the hell are you talking about?" And then he was like, "I'm looking for a PMM." I'm like, "How much are you expecting to pay them?" He said, "Depending on experience." I told him, "Okay, it's 8,000 USD per month on average for X amount of a year of experience." He looked at me like shell shock or whatever, like that much. I'm like, you should know these things when you
What do you
start.
that much? How much are you gonna offer to begin with?
2,000 a month.
Exactly. So I think it's just
Minimum
like
wage.
Yeah.
minimum wage plus equity.
Well,
4 year cliff.
yeah, and I think it's
Four
like
years for 0.2%.
from this conversation, I've picked up two like big things. Is like one, you just have to get so specific with what you're looking for, and not even just from like the job description, but like what type of person do you need to fit this role? What type of person do you need to work with this hiring manager? What type of person do you need to work cross functionally with the product team, the marketing team, the customer success team, sales team, and even what part of product marketing do I need them to focus on, right? We don't have to bury the ocean here, but product marketers do so many different things and can specialize in so many different things as opposed to specializing in a channel, right? So, what part of the product marketing function do you need them to be like an expert at? And I think the second point that I'm picking up is like Are you hiring someone to tell them what to do? Or do you want to hire someone to tell you what to do? And I think you make that distinction internally, and then as us as candidates need to make that distinction. Do we want to get bossed around and get told what to do? Or do we want to be leading the charge and thinking for ourselves 90% of the time? And if those,
The best
go
businesses
ahead.
should choose a ladder. Sorry that I cut
No,
your point,
you
but
nailed it.
the ladder, yeah.
You nailed it, but I just think they have to be honest with themselves, right? That hiring manager has to look themselves in the mirror and say, do I want someone to come in and tell me how to do X, Y, and Z? Or do I want to be the person that's like hardcore coach, hardcore mentor, Mike? I don't want to use the micromanager, but do I want to be that type? Or do I want someone to come into a meeting and be like, no, we're not going to do this because X, Y, Z. We're going to do this, and I plan on doing it ABC. I think you just have to be honest with yourself. And if you are, I think you're going to get a candidate, like you're going to nail your candidate and you guys are going to have a really nice working relationship. But if you're like, if you say, yeah, I want someone to come in here and do positioning work. And then like the CEO all day, every day is, nope, that's not how I envision the product, blah, blah, blah. Like that's not going to get anybody anywhere. So I wouldn't even say just
Yeah, I'm
trust.
like,
I would just say, are you willing to let someone tell you what to do? Is I think baseline for me.
the two things that come to mind for me is one is that once every few years, not once every few months, someone will quote Steve Jobs to justify why we're doing a strategy. But then they'll, for whatever reason, we forget that Steve Jobs also said, "Why would you hire an A player to then tell them what to do?" So I think, Eric, that to your point, that's like the example I think about. Is like, why are you gonna hire? Like you said, I want someone to lead this function, but then proceed to tell them what they need to do. Like then it beats the purpose. So because I don't know, I don't know, man. I'm just like it shocks me.
Except if you're trying to hire for ego, right? Oh, I want to
Yeah,
have X amount of people in the company. I feel like some founders, some entrepreneurs are like that. Oh, I want to have X amount of people working under me, but it's you will never get that far. Like you need A players to, as you said, tell you what to do. I didn't remember it was a Steve Jobs quote, but that's very relevant.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
And I think
Sorry, Zach. Go ahead, man.
no, I think it comes back to is a right, Eric, you said earlier, is a right with the hiring manager, a right fit with the hiring manager. Are you willing to hear their perspective on how to do things? But go ahead. That was what I was going to add.
Yeah, like yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like opinion wise, having a remove as much ego as you can and building a team of people who know better than you and are willing to push those expertises is better than being the leader who like does everything and then delegates. I do 100% believe that. However, if you are that person who wants to be king of the hill and delegate, you have to acknowledge that and not ever interview one of those people who have ambitions and are looking to really drive change and plug holes where they see them. Like you need to be very hyper focused with your entire process, looking for those people who need guidance and then can execute from there, as opposed to building out the strategy and like testing things out and hypothesizing. I do think there is a recipe where that can be successful. I just, if you're not willing to just look yourself in the mirror and acknowledge that and think that you should bring on an A player and tell them what to do, that's just silly, right? Bring on the pieces that you need, but you just got to get honest with yourself. And then if you're not honest yourself, there won't be trust in that organization. What you were saying, Zach, is that's what I think leads to lack of trust is you wanting to build the Lego tower yourself, you wanting to build it with help, or you don't want to build it at all and just have someone else do it type deal. I don't see enough of that.
Lack, yeah, lack of trust and not knowing what you're hiring for. I think that's just like the breeding ground of I was going to be a poor candidate experience like down front. And I think this is why like it's a bit more promising. I see now that jobs are being shared in private communities. There might be one con where if someone's not part of a community to get visibility to that, But it seems, and I might be wrong when I say this, y'all, is that from what I've noticed so far, is that when you are in a private community, it's a bit more smaller, it's a bit more niche around different that persona, and you're more likely to be talking to the hiring manager directly versus being thrown into a recruiting pile where you might be looked at, and if you are looked at, you're being tarred and feathered in the process. I'm not sure what you guys think about that, but like I've seen that as
Hard
being one.
feathered.
Yeah,
What a great.
just sitting there, just shaking on the
I know what our
LinkedIn
cover
that
art is going to be this week, gentlemen. Dude,
Cole,
I
your
agree.
profile be shaking. Just got feathered.
Example wise, being Andy's community, shout out, healthy competition. A lot of those jobs are focused with more of a competitive intelligence lens. Some, like, I would say general PMM stuff definitely leaks through. But there's about 130 people in there, I think, 150. And it is, if I want to get directly to the hiring manager, I know I want to look in that job community. I don't want to look into the other one that has 50,000 members. I don't want to go on some other like board where there's a lot of noise and a lot of other people. I find, like you said, Zach, those small, tighter knit, even nichier community settings
Yeah,
will get you direct line to the person you need to talk to and impress and ultimately get the buy-in to get that job.
exactly.
So yeah, totally advocate for that.
Yeah, it feels
I
like more of a genuine relationship. Oh, Gab, go ahead, man.
No, but I just wanted to say that I fully agree with you, and yeah, I think those private communities
Gab,
help you a bit cut
Gab, you
corners.
can't. We can't have three of us agree on the same topic. You have to. You're gonna have.
Okay, I disagree 100%. You should go in
There we
communities
go.
with over 100,000 people and make sure no one hear about you. What I like is it's almost like mini referrals, right? If I engage with
Yes.
someone, if I'm a good, consistent member of that community, like, hey, I know this guy, we spoke on a few subjects, we had coffee chats. It's good opportunity for referrals. So I think it's always on a stronger standpoint in that case. Something that I feel like is, at least my understanding, is that when looking for a job, it's very easy to fall under, oh, let me just, very similar to outbound a little bit. Oh, let me just go play a huge volume play and try to make sure I take 100% of the shot I can. But if you do that, it's not relevant. And then you're just reinforcing those recruiters of still treating us like numbers instead of like real candidate, and really providing, I won't ghost you. I'll still follow up with you. I'll make sure to make you understand why you are not the right candidate. So I think the first thing is you should have basically the ICP version of the type of companies you want to work with. And then you also need to understand what's your, and this is circling back to my growth marketing days, but what's your North Star metric here? And like the more I'm in my professional career, the more I realize I want to have fun. So what's my fun meter? What maybe fun would be my North Star metric. So I want to work with a company that is doing great campaigns, that is understanding the PMM role, that is like just a bunch of factors like that. So I think if as a candidate you're able to do that extra work, but ultimately this should make you feel less like shit. Last thing on my end would be, if you're unsure of which um, community to join, you can always subscribe to the Dying for Influence newsletter, where we're always sharing insightful stuff and potentially job roles. So I needed to plug, sorry.
And
Oh,
potentially yerba mates, the official beverage of We're Not Marketers.
Still
the,
working
un-
sponsorship.
the unofficial beverage.
Unofficial, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
your remarks.
it's officially unofficial, is what I meant to say.
Your Ramate, if you're hearing this right now, we're looking for one more sponsor. That could be you. Join the newsletter.
The way you put it, it's like coffee while looking for you, like you're talking about.
we're looking for we're trying to get the entire category, not one brand. We want the industry to sponsor this podcast. So your
We want
Ramate,
the
if you hear,
all-in-one yerba mate.
Yeah.
and we're gonna interview you, if we're gonna only look, we don't even know what the criteria is, but we know we want the best yerba mate, and we're not gonna take anything less than that.
And we know what's the bad.
Exactly.
We know what the bad yerba mates are, so we'll know right away.
Yeah, 100%.
One last serious note before we wrap it up for the day. For anyone who makes it through our little fun time there, I've been fortunate enough to be in my first contracting gig, right? And it's more of a full time-ish like type role without the all the paperwork, so to speak, and the government tracking. I think it's like a unique thing and something I would have not thought about in the normal hiring process. But if you have the opportunity to have that conversation with the hiring team, I think it definitely de-risks things on both ends. If you're like, hey, let's try out a few months together or whatever duration of time you feel is appropriate. I think it's really benefited both myself and Clue at this point, where we've been able to try each other out, feel each other out, see what the room is like. Again, without the huge risk that comes with it. And I think on their end, I don't want to speak for them, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think like the onboarding and getting someone in is a lot easier that way too than the other way around. I'm sure the HR lift is a little bit lighter. If you're open to it and the company you're interviewing with is open to it, might not be a bad suggestion to leverage that as part of your talk track.
For sure.
And yeah, Eric, that's a really good point. And I can add to that further is that this is about what is this? This is like year one of like consulting, and I'm gonna share what really good friend here, Crystal Crouch, shared with me a year ago about this time. Was that when I was looking for a role and just going left and right, interviewing for roles and just not hearing responses, she was like, go the back door. And that was like freelance consulting, contracting. And she told me these three things. She was like, Zach, first create an LLC. It's going to cost you like $200 if you go through Inc. Authority. 2, open up a business checking account. Fortunate enough, I lived across the Chase Bank right across the street back in San Francisco. And she's like, 3, reach out to 5 people a day in your immediate network. And that was game-changing advice because it was through that conversation that I got connected from someone with my immediate network, and I'm still working with them as a client today. And like Eric, to your point, it's like coming as a contractor, mind you, that might be an easier way to approach it because there's less risk. You get to build that relationship. If it doesn't work out, like there's more clear expectations. And one benefit that's been really great for me as like operating as my own LLC, I get to set better parameters as to what that engagement should look like. If in any point, if the contract does end, I'm not going to get that random Thursday call and be like, hey, we're letting go. They at least got to let me know a month in advance. So that gives me about 3 weeks to cry and then a week to go find the next opportunity.
Good ratio. Good ratio.
I just
The 3 to 1.
I just be sending you boxes of Amazon boxes of tissues during those 3 weeks. Oh boy.
But I think like this, what's been really cool about the another silver lining of the last 18 months for us, y'all, is that getting more creative of identifying opportunities. I can't imagine if it wasn't for being like, I don't think this podcast would have existed. And now we are VC funded with $993 revenue for FY25.
Plus our swag, so we've surpassed 1,000 now, Zach.
Exactly.
Oh, we surpassed 1,000.
Yeah, with our swag, we're past 1,000 in revenue.
Y'all, baby, we are worth one. Y'all, we worth one PMA certification course. Look at that. Look at that.
You think they'll give us? Do you think they'll give us a 3 for 1?
Oh, that would be
if we just submitted burnout marketers.
We just submitted. Hey, we want to get PMA certified. Just submit. We're all 3 of us.
Yeah. It's just one of us. We just have 3 bodies. It's all right. We're gonna try it. That's our other ad sponsor for this week, by the way. PMA wanted on this one, so that was.
You got your shout out.
But this was a great Monday conversation. We normally do our stuff on Wednesdays, but this was a cool way to spend it. Boys, you got anything else you want to drop for our skeleton crew? before we dip out?
Keep rocking, y'all.
Yeah.
No.
And it's hopefully it will say in the title, we still have to edit this episode, but no one, like, if you're unemployed, you're looking for an opportunity between roles, like, you don't deserve to feel like shit in this market. And for someone who's been through it in the highs and lows of it, always reminding yourself of what your worth is, and that. And I think that people have said this before, but I'll say it again. You got to tell yourself this. You're not your job, and don't let anyone make you feel like you're your job. And if someone hits you up and says, you should have stayed at X company versus laid off, fuck them. We out.
Yeah, for real. You are a gem. Remember that.
Yes.
Exactly.
And then one last note is that I understand that when we do get laid off and we want to send a congratulatory note for the company and their time, if you just ever want to vent, just send us the email being like, and pretend we're the employer. But sometimes it's just good to get it off your chest. Nice City does have a place, but sometimes it's okay just to be like, this fucking sucks. And that's why you can join our newsletter because it won't suck. And
every Friday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern.
You can reply back and vent to us, and we'll reply back to you.
Exactly. Or VC backed owners, new owners absolutely want us to promote it every episode. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes. You might see a little promo there, but don't. Hey, that's what keeps the lights on for us and gets us better microphones. So, thank you to our sponsors.
Yeah.
Our sponsor.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
So everyone knows we are going for the upgraded mics this season. So.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're doing. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us for another episode of We're Not Marketers.
Hey, see you guys.
Thank you. Ciao. Thank you for listening to We're Not Marketers. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe, review our podcast, and share this episode with other PMMs. Thanks again, and see you soon.